So let's talk about Labour's Islamophobia policy. There's been a bit of a setback for Angela Rayner. She has had to basically open up the consultation. They had been hoping to draw up this definition of Islamophobia in secret. They will now have to invite other groups like the Free Speech Union, we will be able to give contributions. Previously, it was just the usual suspects, the kind of groups who were basically calling for, blasphemy law, were the only people invited to consult on this. Tom, what have you made of this episode and of the issue more broadly?
No, it's another small victory amongst many bigger victories for the Free Speech Union, forcing them via this legal challenge to actually open it up to consultation. I think now the aim is to constantly kind of push and draw this out into the light to stop this definition from being developed in the first place. I mean, it's worth saying that this is not about them drawing up an Islamophobia blasphemy law. I mean, in a way, even if they did, it would be kind of surplus to requirements at this point, given you can be convicted for burning a Quran, as we've learned, or even given our existing, supposedly secular legislation. But it could have really pernicious effects, because this would be about drawing up this definition. It seems largely based on that 2018 all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims definition, which essentially posited Islamophobia is a form of racism, even though Islam isn't a race, and very much playing into the game that's been played by both Islamists and kind of credulous liberals for a long time, which is that to criticise this religion or even Islamist extremism is a kind of species of racism and shouldn't be done. So it's really important that doesn't happen, because it would basically be imposed on state bodies. It would affect how they could deal with certain issues, how they could discuss these quite thorny issues. And if you read that 2018 report, I mean, it quotes pretty favourably invited experts who say things like discussions of the grooming gang stigmatises Muslims.
Yeah.
So if this is a government that is actually serious about dealing with those kinds of problems, surely this is a non-starter. But you just hope that at some point the penny will drop that term Islamophobia is the problem. We all recognise anti-Muslim bigotry when we see it. We all recognise racism when we see it. This is obviously a much more specious term, which is weaponised by Islamists and gone along with by idiots. And I would rather that we confronted that. But I think it was particularly telling that they were doing this behind closed doors, because I think they knew that if sunlight was drawn in on this, people would start to object to it much more than was going on previously. And
it is worth having a look at that 2018 report, because it does really cover all the ground, anything contentious, anything not even, it's not even just about Islamic doctrine, but things sort of tangential to Islam, from grooming gangs to the hijab to burqa to even historical facts. So there's an amazing bit in it that says that you shouldn't suggest it's racist to suggest that Islam subjugates people by the sword, which is Tom Holland, the historian, has said, well, obviously that's how Islam spread in the 7th century. How else would it have done? So it's just a very bizarre attempt, clearly, to not just shut down racism or racial hatred, but kind of any discussion that might ever touch on any Muslim person or anything that even seems, the phrase it uses is Muslimness. What the hell is that? Is that, that could just mean someone wearing a headscarf that's not even Muslim, or anything vaguely tangential to Islam must be clamped down on.
The APPG definition of Islamophobia is unbelievable. If you look at some of the examples, it's astonishing. For example, saying that some Muslims are more loyal or have more identification with the Ummah, the global Muslim community, is Islamophobic. I've met many Muslim individuals who do say that about their own selves and their religion. Saying someone maybe exaggerating Islamophobia is an example of Islamophobia. Denying Muslim populations the right to self-determination. That is a very vague, does it mean that, for example, if you don't necessarily believe in a two-state solution in Palestine, that means that you're Islamophobic? So, as you rightfully mentioned, anything that may be mildly or very loosely critical of Islam in any way, or the actions of Muslims, would be regarded as Islamophobic under the definition that was under the APPG. And again, there are definitely Islamist groups exploiting it, but it's also, again, concerning. You had Wes Streeting, I think he was actually involved in the APPG definition, the health secretary at the time. Maybe he's distanced himself, but again, Dominic Grieve, the prominent conservative politician, is involved in the current working group and also was involved in the previous one. And it's the silencing again of voices within the Muslim community. At the Equiano Project, we published an open letter recently condemning the definition of Islamophobia. It was signed by a range of organizations, faith groups, and none. Many of them were Muslim individuals. So the Taj Haji from the Oxford Institute of British Islam, Fayez Mogul, the founder of Tell Mama, the anti-Muslim bigotry monitoring organization, has effectively been marginalized by Angela Rayner for criticizing this definition of Islamophobia. So it really is, the only people that are allowed to effectively have a credible or moral opinion on this are individuals who think that Islamophobia is rife, it's a form of racism, and anyone that disagrees is a racist and bigot. So obviously one welcomes that the consultation has been opened up, but the fact that it's taken, a threat of legal action, pressure from loads of different organizations, it really tells you where the direction of travel is.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the government even thinks of instituting such a definition is alarming in itself.